I'd like to introduce to you today a wonderful medium who hails from New Jersey and is now living in North Carolina. She is a medium, a spiritual teacher, and an alumni of the church from Janet Mahavic's The Journey Within. It's with great pleasure I introduce to you Miss Kim Griffin. Hi, Kim.
Hi,
Thank you so
Lorraine.
much for joining me today. I really appreciate being able to have a chat with you. I know that you have a really long experience, a long history with mediumship, and I'm really looking forward to delve into it with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please, Kim.
Well, as you said before, I'm a New Jersey native, and I've lived in North Carolina for approximately 8 years now. I have 2 sons that still live in New Jersey. I guess you probably want to know more about my mediumship than anything else. But I do thoroughly believe that what leads us to mediumship is, I don't want to say tragic occurrences, but things that have happened in our lives that kind of catapult us, that take away our faith, that bring us down to a bottom, so to speak, whether it's grieving through a member of the family, or whether it's our own bottom that we have created for whatever reason. And I don't want to say created, but that has been bestowed upon us, I should say. So with me, it was actually through drugs and alcohol. And so I've been, and I say this very, very upfront about people, because there are a lot of people in the mediumship community that have struggled with drugs and alcohol. So that's why I'm pretty forthright about that. And, have been sober for quite a few years, for about 27 years now. But my first experience with mediumship, I would say, would be in my teen years. And I can't even say that I recognized it as being mediumship, because it was through dream state, things were happening. So for instance, I would have a relative come to me in dream state saying they were on vacation, or saying that they were in the candy shop, or saying that they were in the diner, or whatever. And not sure what that was about until getting up the next day and hearing from my mother, whoever, that so-and-so passed away. And then later on, it was it repeated itself. So I did understand that they were coming to me in dream state, saying their goodbyes, and the vacation, the candy shop, the diner was their heaven.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I understood it to be that. Did I want to do anything about it? No, because I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even understand, that this was mediumship. And it probably wasn't until maybe in my 30s, or I'd say late 20s, early 30s, did I understand what mediumship was. And that was just through watching like John Edward and hearing other people as well. And going to psychics myself and wanting to connect to my spirit loved ones, and them saying, I don't do that. That's mediumship. And those psychics were very, very honest. I don't do that. I don't connect. I don't know how. I don't want to. And so, but I can give you one heck of a psychic read. Okay, fine. And they did. So, kudos to them. But through my 20s, I had a lot of struggles with alcohol. And so it was trying to get my life back into track by putting down the bottle, any drugs that followed that as well. And also, going into rehab, going to a 12-step program, and doing all the things that I was supposed to be doing beforehand, and just being accountable for my actions. And you will hear a lot of people say that are lead development circles or lead development classes, that it is about self-development. And it certainly is. Because if you don't have your proverbial blank together, then how are you going to help other people? So God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, so to speak, getting everything together so I could catapult to the level of bringing through, your spirit loved ones. Basically, I didn't see it at that time. I didn't even know it. It was all hazy to me. I just wanted to be able to not drink and raise my kids and just provide a roof over their head and eat. And drive, because I had my license taken away. That's all I wanted to do. And down the road, meet a good man, if God led me to that, which he did. And so anyhow, so that kind of got the ball rolling with the self-development. And again, not knowing that that's exactly what I was doing, was the self-development and prepping me for my future, basically. So my first experience, stop me anytime if you want.
Well, I'm enjoying what you're saying. I've got
I'm throwing down. You're picking up when I'm throwing down. You got it. So, but I do remember, speaking of a meeting, I was in a 12-step meeting one day, and this is what really, really got me. Now, I must have been in my mid-30s at this particular time. And the experience that I was having more dreams. I was having more sensing things, I should say. And I still really wasn't paying attention to it. And there were things that happened in my 20s with a house and stuff like that, but I won't get involved with that. I'm not gonna, so anyhow, I was probably in my mid-30s, and I was at an AA meeting. And so I'm listening to somebody's story, they're sharing, and it's real heartwarming and blah, 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 and I'm getting into it. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I can see in my mind's eye my mother in the hospital room. And she had been gone probably, I want to say 10 years by that time, maybe 8 or 9. I'm not really sure. I forget. But I mean, and I can smell the smells. I can feel her. I look at my arms, and, all my hair is standing up, like straight up. And it wasn't like I all of a sudden got the chills and there's my hair. I was just like, I looked at my arms and my hairs were straight up. And I'm like, what is going on? And I just knew she came to me. And I don't know why it took that long for her to come to me, but it did, so, and I was awake, and I was like, wow. So after the meeting, I go over, I make some coffee, or I'm cleaning up the coffee area. I'm still kind of shooken up about that. Not scared, just like, wow, what was that? Somebody came up to me, swear to God, and said, Kim, you look like you saw a ghost. I'm like, wow, and I said, well, I think my mother came to me. And they said, hasn't your mother passed? And I said, yeah. And they're like looking at me like, you drinking again? And I'm like, no, my mother came to me. And then the next sentence was, somebody's going to die tonight.
Oh, wow.
And it didn't even it wasn't even a thought in my head before that. It's just the words kind of spelled out, and they're like, whoa, that's pretty heavy stuff there. And I'm like, yeah, somebody's going to die either tonight or tomorrow, but somebody's going to die. And so the next day, my husband's mother passed away, and she wasn't expected to pass away. So it wasn't like I had that in my mind or anything. She was not, it was totally unexpected. And so I do believe that my mother came to me to prep me, to prep my husband, to also let us know that she was there to greet Joni on the other side, even though they didn't know each other. That's why I tell people all the time, just because they didn't know each other on the earth plane doesn't mean they're not together, on the other side, in the other dimension.
And that makes sense when you think about it too, right? Why wouldn't one of our own loved ones not want to support our other loved ones, right?
Yeah, makes sense to me. So, and that would have been her personality. That would have been who she was, my mother, to greet another mother on the other side, somebody that was connected to somebody that I love. So why wouldn't she do that? So, when that did happen, and then we got word that morning, my husband had to go up to North Jersey and go to the hospital and all this stuff. And I remember looking at the clock, and it was probably about 11:15 going, she's gone. Like, I just went, she's gone. And I asked him, like, what time did she die? And he said, I don't know, it was like 11:15. So it was that those things were starting to happen to me, and I don't want to bring 9/11 into it, but, we were 45 minutes outside of New York City when the planes hit. And there's just weird experiences. I remember taking off in the morning. This is before the planes hit. And I went to that house because I had a cleaning business. I went to the house every single day, not every single day, once a week for 5 years. And so I remember just being in this daze and going around in circles in around the block. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. It was almost like I was in a light trance state. I had no idea. And I get to the house and we turn the TV on, and there's the planes just.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow. So I'm not saying I had any type of premonition or anything about that, but and I had a premonition of my mother's passing and whatnot, and that was in dream state, and I won't get involved in that, but so after a fashion, I kind of took an interest in all this because it was happening so fast and furious.
They were starting to really knock at your door.
It was coming to a head. And, and I took all the accumulation of things that happened in my 20s, the premonition of my mother's passing, the house experience that I had. It was, and the house that I lived in was a friend of mine. It was her mother's house. The mother was still alive. Miriam was still alive at the time, but my friend's father had passed in the house, and there was a priest that passed upstairs. So I was having all those experiences as well. And I do believe at that particular time, I don't believe in stuck spirits or anything like that. That's just not part of my belief system. Now, it's not a knowing, it's just a belief system. So I don't want anybody to get upset with me. But I do believe that their energy was there, and it was just certain things that happened within the house. And every time me and my ex-husband would argue, something would be thrown across the kitchen, and I'm like, oh my God, to the point where I had to call her up and ask her and say, I know this sounds really crazy, but do you have ghosts in the house?
Right.
Because I didn't know spirit, I just said ghost. You got ghosts? Is the place haunted? Like, I had no idea. And she had said to me, oh, you met Tony, but you know Tony in life. And I'm like, yeah, I know, Mr. So-and-so. And she goes, yeah, it's Tony. And I'm like, oh my God. She goes, why do you think the doorbell is ripped off? And I'm like, I don't know why the doorbell is ripped off. I figured you just have problems. She goes, because the night that he passed, he kept on ringing the doorbell. So they had to disconnect it. So yeah, so there was all this, funky activity and whatnot. But again, I do believe it was the energy and whatnot. So that's what happened with the house. And there's more stuff. But so I had all this accumulation of things that are happening in my teenage years, those dreams and everything else. And when, I was busy with my addiction, it subsided. And it's not that it subsided. It was just I was in a different place. So, anyhow, so then I started to, I don't even know if I researched it so much, to be honest with you. I did a little bit. And now this was like before Facebook and before Meetup or anything. So it was really hard.
More difficult.
There wasn't Zoom, there wasn't Facebook, how do I practice on people? How do I know this is real? I don't know this is real. I have no idea. So I actually, and this isn't suggested, but all the don'ts, I got them. I got all the don'ts, but I bartended and I waitressed at that particular time. And so I would practice on some of my customers that knew that I was a little off. And they were more than happy. And so then what happened was I had a friend of mine that she said, there's a medium in Somerville and she's having a gallery reading. why don't you come with me? Because she has a couple spots open. I said, okay. So I went there and I watched her read, and I would, while she was connecting, I didn't know this, like I was connecting too, purposely to see what I would come up with, if, I'm like, I don't even know how this works. I think it's in my head. I'm not sure. We'll see. And, some of the things I hit on, I didn't say anything. I just kept it to myself, because it's her gallery reading and whatnot. And I didn't know at that particular time that I might have been taking away from the energy of her reading, but regardless. So I went and I had a reading with her, but it wasn't so much to understand my mediumship. It was to connect to people. She did connect to a few people of mine at the gallery reading, but I wanted a private. So her reading alone, and I didn't know it at the time, but it did teach me a lot about mediumship and how it works with different people, because she was sensing things on her own body. And there was a part in the reading where she connected to my father, and her knee was really swollen. She goes, why is my knee all swollen? And I'm feeling very itchy around my knee. I said, because the last time I saw him, he got stung by a bee on his knee and his knee was swollen up. Okay. So, I didn't think about that until later on, how spirit can kind of impose certain things. With her, it was like, I think it was superimposed, but it also came to understanding that things will happen beforehand too, because she had told me before I got there, she had certain thoughts or certain feelings about certain things. So she, she relayed them to me, and they were true. And they were but the reading itself, it gave me a lot of peace between the relationship that I had with my father. I wanted certain people to come through. I wanted my father to come through. But I wanted my mother to come through more so than my father. But there was a need for him to come through. So that also imposed upon me the fact that there's a need rather than the want. We want certain people to come through, but our soul always knows what we need. Always knows what we need. And that's what I needed. And I needed that to let go of the anger and things that were weighing me down. Soon as that was done, and I'm not saying that I don't carry a debris with me, but as soon as I could kind of face that and understand the remorse that he felt, and that there were apologies that were had, I was able to let go of the anger and whatnot. And then I was able to kind of pursue different things. After that reading, I said, I'm not doing mediumship. I'm not doing any of this, because I don't want to, I don't know why. It felt too much of a responsibility.
It is, right?
Right. It is. And it felt too much. And it felt like a burden. Like, because when she got up, it was almost as if she carried all this stuff. But then again, when she walked away, she goes, I have another reading, and it was gone. So I was like, okay, so I kind of took that as a lesson as well. So what I did was I went up, my friend, actually, she was taking classes from her. They were spiritual classes, spiritual unfoldment, which included psychic work and then mediumship. So the first year, she just concentrated on psychic. She didn't do any mediumship. And that was my main thing, was mediumship. I wanted to get involved in mediumship. And I have to say that before I went for that reading, I was already practicing on people. I was already reading people. I don't know how good it was, but I was picking things up and reading people. People would come to my house. I would practice on them. I would practice on my neighbors, beauticians, anybody I could get a hold of that was willing to sit for me. That's what I did. But it got more so after my development, because she was only working on psychic. Now, when I did psychic, it felt like I always did that. So it didn't feel like anything different. It felt like, she would bring us through a meditation. What do you feel? What do you sense? What do you see? She would introduce us to our clairs, et cetera, et cetera. But I almost felt like I do that already. Like I've done that. And I didn't even know I did that, so
preparing yourself. really for a long time. You've been preparing yourself for a
Yeah,
long time.
exactly. It is exactly what it was. It was preparing. Yeah. And yeah, so I was really antsy about the mediumship. And so what we would do, because she was pretty adamant that we weren't doing mediumship, that we would have to wait a year. And it turns out that it was probably more about the money than anything else. But you know what? It's okay.
It's all lessons,
It
right?
was okay. Because, and I say this because, I think the intention really was, it was the money. But that being said, when I went into another development class, which I'll talk about in a minute, I ran into a bunch of mediums that never did psychic, and they were afraid of psychic. So here I am studying the psychic work for a year, and then going into that mediumship development class, because after a year we started doing mediumship, but within that year and a half, we were having private circles outside of class. So we were kind of teaching ourselves and everything, and I was reading up and blah, blah, blah. But so anyhow, when I went to the other mediumship development class, yeah, I ran into all these women or men that said, "Oh, I'm never getting near psychic." And I wasn't afraid at all, like I said, because I already had that experience. I already did it. So there was nothing to be afraid of, I was doing you do that, you're not afraid. I'm like, no, I'm already doing that, so it was fine. So what I did was I was getting a little antsy because I wanted some real structure in my development. And I wanted validations about what I was feeling, seeing, sensing, things of that nature. Is this normal? Is this not normal? My whole development in the beginning was spirit led. It was all spirit led. So I looked up certain things. I did have a girl that I would go to who was a medium, and she would read for me. And she had said to me, "Did you think about going to the nun?" I'm like, I don't know what nun you're talking about. What nun? And she said, "Janet New Havoc. She's up in North Jersey." So this girl, Amy, is actually from Connecticut or Massachusetts. So she looked it up and she's like, "Oh, it's only 45 minutes away from you." So I'm like, all right, let me go check it out. Now I was still in the other development class. But so I was like, all right, let me go check this out. So me and somebody else went up to the church, and it was an off night. And I kind of looked around and I'm like, ooh, I really like this. I like this place. And I didn't take a class yet or anything. And then I went to the service, and I liked the service. It was pretty cool. Never been to a spiritualist church before. Did not know what to expect, but it was fun. It was nice. It was enlightening. And then they had in the back room, they have all these papers where you can sign up for workshops and stuff like that. So I did sign up for this one class with Sharon Shubis, and who was excellent. So it was like a beginner's class. Even though I've been doing it for a little while, I just let me just stick with the beginners, So did that and went there on Thursday nights for a few months. They did a summer break, and I did a workshop with Janet New Havoc during the summer. It was towards the end of the summer, and it was a weekend workshop, and it was like 7 or 8 hours.
Wow.
Saturday and Sunday, and I enjoyed it. And then she said to us, I think it was an email where she must have said it. She said, if whoever went to this workshop, you are qualified to sign up for my development class. So I'm having a development class. This is the first time she started. I think she did teach. I mean, she obviously did teach before, but this was, I believe it was the first time that she had these classes on a Monday night. So she goes, it's going to be Monday night, 2 hours, blah, 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 $20 for each class. So I'm like, I could do that. So I went up there for 4.5 years, every Monday night, and learned from Janet. I learned from the best, yeah. So I did that. And then I moved to North Carolina.
So you've got a lot of story to you, Kim. I want to backtrack a few
I know I got a lot. That's a lot.
Which is awesome. And so, you know, a couple of things that you touched on that really impressed upon me is the journey, is your experience when you said that you were brought down to these lows. And the struggle that you have, because it's true, I have seen myself that many people that enter into mediumship have been propelled through having some adverse challenges in their life.
Correct.
And do you find, one thing that I really wonder upon is individuals that sort of maybe enter into mediumship that have had struggles with addiction. Do you feel that's due to having a sensitivity?
I will say for me, no. I think it's because I really like to drink. But it could be because I was sensitive to other things as well. So in a sense, yeah, you know, it could be. I have a friend that had said the same thing. Do you think it's because, you know, of your, you know, connection with the spirit world? And I never, you know, I'm like, nah, I just really, really like to be drunk, you know, but, you know, if you look deeper into it, you know, why does somebody, you know, you could say it's genetic, or, you know, it was a lot of running away from myself and my own insecurities and so many other things, and being very sensitive, just being a very sensitive person, extremely. I mean, I could cry at a drop of a hat.
That's what I mean.
Very, very sensitive. Yeah. Like if you looked at me the wrong way, I would start to cry.
Yes.
Very, very sensitive. So, you know, there's that. So yeah, you know, drinking gave me, you know, gave me beer muscles, gave me a way to kind of escape my insecurities and whatnot. So yeah, it could.
But you talked also about the personal development part. That's very, very important. And I know that within spiritualism, one of the principles is about having that personal responsibility. And that is within the 12 steps. It is said that the 12 steps were or are tools for spiritual development, and that it came in sort of a revelation that the 12 steps came to.
Yeah, it did. From what I understand, you know, Bill W., you know, he had a spiritual experience where he felt that spirit did come to him. And when they were writing it out and writing the 12, they feel like it was almost channeled in a sense, you know, from spirit, you know. And when you think about it, and I know I'm getting a little off topic, but when you think about, you bring it back to the purest form, you have two drunks, two, you know, that get together and they talk about their own experience, strength, and hope. And then it grows, and then it grows, and it grows from Akron, Ohio to New York, to other parts of the country. And then it goes to other parts of the world. And it's like millions and millions and millions of people. Started from two people. What can that be but spirit at its best?
Actually, I just thinking about that, I'm thinking that's God at work.
That's absolutely God at work right there. I mean, you start from two guys, and Dr. Bob, I mean, they pretty much chalked him up to die like within a month or so. Like he was done. And then Bill Wilson, Bill W., you know, he kind of came into the picture, and then it grew, you know, And yeah, so yeah, he also, if anybody is interested, Bill W. also was a psychic medium.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know this. I had no idea until somebody in my development group that was also a recovering alcoholic said, did you know that Bill Wilson was a medium? And I said, no. And so I looked it up, and in, I think his house in Vermont, there was a spook room. They called it the spook room. That's where he did his readings.
And that's actually really kind of astonishing when you think about that. But what is significant to me is to be able to have those that are listening, to be able to, that may be struggling, that may be having issues within their own personal journey, and that haven't yet reached that point where they're coming out of that darkness. And for you to talk about your own personal journey and being brought to those lows, and how you now using that as an opportunity to help and heal others, that can be very inspiring or motivating to someone else. So I really wanted to come back to that. And I thank you for sharing that part of your story, because that's a very personal part, but it also allows for your own experience to be able to help lead others on their own journey. Because if you think about it, we're all having our own spiritual journey, whether we realize it or not.
Right. Well, as part of being a medium is to be of service to people, to bring through their loved ones, to give them aid in the bereavement, but also not part of it, but the whole idea of being a human being, you need to be of service to everything. So if I'm going to be of service, I'm going to be of service of everything. Whether it be my own experience, my struggles through, drugs and alcohol, my struggles through a divorce, whatever it may be. I want to be of service with my whole being, not just part of it, not just an aspect of me, because mediumship, what also happens is people start to define themselves by their mediumship, which is a really dangerous proposition. Because if you better be prepared to be disappointed, because what happens is, we always have those readings that we don't feel that we kind of, it was subpar, or we think it is, our expectations are, not quite what we wanted it to be, and they might be fine. But, every time we do a reading, and we do a really great reading, we just raise the bar. So when we're doing like something that we did 2 years ago, which we would consider good, we do that now, we're like, oh God, what am I doing? This is terrible. But it's not terrible. But what happens is, I've seen too many people get so depressed, and their self-worth goes right into the dumpster because they didn't have a good reading, or they might have a string of readings that didn't go well for them. And oh my God, blah, blah, blah. I just lost my purpose in life, blah, blah, blah. Your purpose in life for me is not to be a medium, but it is to help the person cross the street, take my neighbor to the mailbox to get their packages, take another person, talk to them about AA, or help another person. That's my purpose. Part of my purpose is to help somebody in their aiding of their bereavement as well. But mediumship is not my whole purpose, because there's so many different aspects of me as a person. Does that make sense?
It makes wonderful sense. And I thank you for really opening that up and sharing that in a really beautiful way. That's very profound, actually, because what you're saying is to really, for the individual, for the medium, to focus simply, truly on being of service, instead of
Exactly.
the individual, the me aspect.
Right. There was I'll say woman, because there's lots and lots of mediums. So nobody will know who I'm talking about. But there was a woman that she told me, she goes, I had X amount of years of sobriety and blah, 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 but don't tell anybody. I said, why? I said, I'm not going to tell anybody because it's not my business to tell anybody, but why do you feel you shouldn't tell anybody? She goes, because I'm still full of shame and full of guilt. And I said to her, we're in a position where we can help people, not just connect to their loved ones, but help them in a personal situation. And she goes, you tell people? I said, absolutely. I mean, if the subject matter comes up, I tell people. Yes, I do tell people. I said, I don't just blurt it out, but I will, like I said, if the subject matter comes up and they're struggling with something and they're struggling with alcohol, I'll say, I've been sober X amount of years. You might want to try this, or you might want to try that. I don't go, and I don't want to, I don't go to too many, I don't go to hardly any 12-step meetings anymore. The pandemic happened. And so, I went online and stuff, but, I need to get back, but it is what it is.
And Kim, and thank you for just talking about that, because what you're saying is to really allow for all of your personal experience to be used to help others.
Exactly. Everything.
And for me, that means a couple of things. That means, one, that allowing your own personal experience is that we're no longer stigmatizing some things that we have as human beings.
Right.
And so to be able to look at that as part of, the human experience that allows us to grow, but also at the end of it, through that experience, we're able to help others. And I feel that really is very beautiful.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. That is very beautiful. And when you spoke about that other medium still having a lot of shame and guilt, that is going to allow someone else that may be struggling with the same things to let go of that shame and guilt.
Right.
And the self-condemnation that we sometimes have as human beings. So thank you for sharing that. I feel that's wonderful. And it shows me too that you have a really, really very truly spiritual outlook on mediumship. And I think sometimes that does lack. That spiritual component when we talk about mediumship. Now, you mentioned going to see the nun.
Yeah, right.
Having classes with the nun. Tell me, what was that like, being able to have the opportunity to
Oh my God. It was like, night and day. It was, I got it drilled in my head, and the person has since passed. The other person has since passed, but I don't want to say any names, but there was like this whole thing where you don't cross your legs, because if you cross your legs, you're not going to allow spirit to come forward. There was all this kind of hogwash stuff, in between. I grabbed a lot of good stuff that she had to offer as well. But, so when I went up there and I would ask these really silly, dumb questions, I never did any of that. I always crossed my legs. I didn't really care. I thought she was kind of full of it anyhow. But I would pose these questions, and they're like, why would that have anything to do with anything? Spirit's going to come to you no matter where you are. You could be on a railroad tracks. It's still going to come to you. So yeah, you crossing your legs has nothing to do with anything, So she put some common sense into it, and I saw how normal she actually was. The danger part is putting somebody like that on a pedestal, putting I was just talking about this with somebody, putting them on a hierarchy, so to speak, but she was very upfront about, or just very down to earth. She was very, very down to earth. It's not like she cursed like a sailor or anything like that, but she was normal, and it just gave me really good insight in how mediumship really is supposed to work, in a sense. It helped me format my readings as well, and it helped me structure readings. But the opportunity that she gave other people is just, it was unbelievable, and so selfless. So selfless. I remember being in class one time, and she said, okay, we're going to do platform mediumship. I had no idea what the heck she was talking about. Like, what the hell is this platform mediumship, and you can do demonstrations on stage, platform mediumship, blah, 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 blah. And so I thought to myself, I am never, ever going to do that. I'm never going on a stage and doing that. It's enough for me to do them in private, and then after a while, I would see a few people going up there in class, and I went up there and I wasn't scared of the people, like nervous about that being on stage. It was just connecting, I'm like, I don't know if I can connect and and I did. And I actually really, really liked platform. And I got addicted to platform, and I still love platform. So it just gives you a really good platform to connect to a multiple of spirits. So that's what I liked about it. I could, one goes and another one comes, and that one goes and another one comes. And so because I'm so fast paced at times that it's, it was easy for me as an individual to go like that, because I am kind of ping pongy all over the place. So that was easy for me to do that, to go 1, 2, 3, get them. Were they always great? No, but I was able to connect. So I do that. And she was just very, 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 very supportive. And I'll never forget the first time that me and another one of the student mediums, we went on regular platform, meaning we went to the service and did platform. We weren't introduced as student mediums. We were the mediums. And we go up there, and I remember looking at the other medium going, I can't believe, and looking at the other ones that were up there, Janet No Havoc, Joe Shields, and we're on platform with them. And we're doing what they're doing. It was amazing to me. I remember kind of tearing up a little bit, but like I said, Janet was very, very supportive of even your own particular style. Cause I was kind of like a little rogue in a sense. And, when she needed to rein me in, she did, but she usually didn't. She would say things like, you don't have to be too forceful with the men. I'm like, okay. just read about just a little bit. But besides that, she was like, oh, just go for it, Kim, go for it. So she embraced some of the uniqueness that I might have to offer in readings. We'll just put it that way. But very, very, very supportive, and very honest too. So, Janet she didn't coddle people. Mm-hmm. She would never, if you got a compliment from her, then you deserved it, because you usually didn't get anything like, you did good, and she'd walk away. Yeah, you did good. Like, you did your job. All right, get over it. It was kind of like that. Like, we're, yeah, you did okay.
And that's what that brings.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit. Lorraine, you're breaking up. Lorraine? 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 Oh, geez. You're breaking up. I'm going to leave. Oh, shoot. Are you there? I don't see you. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So Janet, that's what she did. She would allow, the students to go up there and to serve in, the service, the spiritualist service, when she thought that they were ready to do so. So, it was quite an honor, for her to do that with me or anybody else. And yeah, she just to see her motivation as well. And, with just everything, she would just go, 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 bringing people over from England, teaching workshops, hosting different mediums as well. She hosted James von Prague. That was a hotel. She did that a couple times, but she's the one that hosted it. She's the one that put it all together. She did all of that. She was amazing in that aspect. And I just saw what she did in service and how she helped other people connect to their loved ones, and just loving, just very, very loving, and just always willing to teach, always willing. She was honest as get up though. And I remember going to Lilydale, and I said to her, going to Lilydale, I'm going to go. And she's like, great. Who are you going to get to read for you? And I told her, and she goes, you want to pay $400 for a reading? And I'm like, no. And she's like, well, then go to this one. And I went, okay. She goes, she's good. And I said, okay. So she was, like I said, she was very, very honest as well, and she was, they're still carrying out the schoolhouse, the renovations for the schoolhouse. So there's donations for that as well. But, just from her book, she's inspired people, that, online on Facebook pages and whatnot. There's certain mediumship development pages, and everybody has read her book. Everybody reads her book. And
it's one of the ones that absolutely is one of the musts to read in mediumship.
Yeah, you have to read the book. You got to read the book, And I remember when the book came out, and reading it, and I'm like, well, this is what I'm being really, really honest. That's the class. That's the class right there. Everything that there's the class. Though it was extended for 4 years, we did other things too and whatnot. But, she would sit there in the front, and if anybody had any questions, she was willing to answer. And then we would break up and do an exercise. That's what we did. But after a while, when you have a beginner's class, and you have them going on and on and on, they're not beginners anymore, they're advanced. And then what more are they going to really learn, but from their own experience? So by the time that happened, I went to North Carolina. I think it was like the last class ever, and then they started to teach. So my fellow classmates, they started to teach, and they teach now. They teach at the Journey Within. But that's the place to go, for a workshop. We go to workshops, and I don't know how she got these people, but there were people from Canada, people from Washington State, people from Nebraska, people from Florida, people from, all over, and I'm like, how did you hear of this place? And that's because she has a really great reputation, still has a great reputation, It
obviously has a great deal of love too for mediumship, for spiritualism. In order to be able to have put all that together, it's got to come from the heart.
Yeah, and it saved her life. Mediumship saved her life because she went through, and it's in her book, so it's not like I'm saying anything, but she went through her own struggles, a lot of struggles. She does not come from a great background. She had a very, very abusive father. They were immigrants. They struggled, and yeah, so there was a lot of that. And then, as she got an adult, she struggled with which way does she go? And then she went into the convent. And then she decided not for me when you're talking to spirits and whatnot, and I think there's other things she wanted to experience. So yeah, so she's a really, really great example of what to be a mediumship.
Some things really stand out to me from what you've said. And one was you were talking about that perceived hierarchy that sometimes exists within mediumship. And you're saying that here you are really having the best of the best. And yet it sounds that she was very humble.
She was extremely humble. She was very, very humble. Yeah, she really was. She was a very humble person. But yet she was nobody's fool either, though. She was nobody's fool. She was a great businesswoman. And, and like I said before, Janet didn't coddle people. If you didn't cut the mustard, she told you, and she wouldn't just say, you're not cutting the mustard. She would say, you know what? You may need to go back to a beginner's class, or you may need some self-development, or you may need to work on these issues that you have. And then when you work on them, then you can come back. There was plenty of people that had different ideas about stuck spirits and this and that and whatever, spooky, scary, fearful things. And she said, this isn't the place for you.
Okay.
She would just, yeah, she was really upfront about it, like I said, she was humble, but she was very honest. She was very New Jersey, very Jersey, but we'll just put it that way.
That's awesome. And I also like the way that you said that she allowed the medium to sort of really work with their own style. And I feel that is significant.
Yeah, in bounds, it wasn't, you still had, when you went up there and you did the spiritual service, you had to, you had to do it accordingly. It's not like you could just slip off your shoes and do this. There were things that you had to go in business attire, men had to do suit and jackets and stuff. But I mean, as far as the style, the reading itself, all I can tell you is what she allowed me to do as well. I don't like following a script as far as my mediumship is concerned. And I didn't, and I never did, so yes, I would kind of go back to rank, name, serial number, but I kind of broke loose from that as well. But I will say, and this has nothing to do with Janet No Havoc or the journey within, but this is about overloading on workshops and whatnot, because we have a tendency to do that, whether or not you go to the journey or another development facility or whatever. What happens is it confuses the hell out of us. I had told one person in particular who was taking a slew of workshops. I said, you need to stop. I said, because it's going to confuse you and it's going to ruin your mediumship, because you're going to be all over the place. And this person came back to me and said, you know what, you were right. And it was a few years later. And not that I like, oh yeah, I'm always right. No, it's because I experienced it myself. And it got to a point where I was taking so many workshops, so many classes. I mean, I had Janet's thing, which was fine and good, but then I was taking other workshops, and this one from England, that one from England, and then this and that, and going over here and going over there. And I was getting all these mixed messages. And I normally go very fast with my mediumship. And there was a tutor that said that that's not good. Rapid fire, it's not good. You shouldn't do that. Blah, 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 blah. And even, well, somebody very well respected said one time, I don't respect rapid fire. And I was like, wow, well, I better buckle down and I better slow my ass down here, because they don't respect it. And then what happened was, boom, like I bottomed out, because I'm trying to go against my own grain. I didn't go with the flow. I went with their grain, which is against my grain, and it almost ruined my mediumship. So I said, I don't need to do that anymore. And I got myself, and not that I got myself out of New Jersey, but I moved down to North Carolina, and I had to start, because people at the church, well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I have no idea how I'm going to get the word out, but I'm just going to do it. And I'm just going to keep on reading. If it's on the phone, because no Zoom, there was no Zoom, and I'll do it on the phone or do it or whatever. But this is what I have. And somehow or another, you just keep on pounding the pavement. You keep leaving yourself open for certain things. It's going to happen. And then I started saying, you know what? I was teaching a little bit up there. I'm going to teach some more. And that's what I'm going to do. And then, and Lord and behold, it worked out fine. But, people get afraid to move from their area or go into a different direction, whether it be a location or something else, because they're afraid that it's not going to follow. It's not going to happen for you. And trust me, it is. If you're meant to be there with Spirit's going to put you there no matter what. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and I love it. I love that you're able to share that, because that is going to help someone that may be listening to it at this time. So that's wonderful. That's good stuff. Tell me, going back to Janet Nahavik, tell me, you must have obviously a lot of memories of her. What's your strongest memory of her? Is there a moment that stands out in your mind, something that she may have said that helped you on your journey, or what stands out the most when you think about her?
Well, it was the strength of her. It was, again, she was nobody's fool. And I don't want to say you didn't cross her, but she had boundaries, and she was very, very well respected, but there was a softness about her too. And, in the first couple of years, you're even scared I was, I don't want to say scared, but I was intimidated, to talk to her. But, she's been around the block. She was around the block with mediumship and stuff. And there was something that happened one time where somebody wrote something, and the person wrote a book, and I wasn't, I said, well, they want me to write this thing about it and blah, 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 because the person left the material in her office. And she says, you don't have to do that. And so she kind of gave me, she gave me permission to be myself. And I didn't have to follow all these little soldiers. I thought they were like little soldiers and whatnot, and she's like, you don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to write a review, and you have to think of what that person's motivation is too, So it was just that, Janet was more human than, she was just really, really down to earth, just very human as well, and no, she wasn't perfect. Trust me, she wasn't perfect, but she was a perfect for her. She was perfect for her, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
She would go up there and she would just encourage you, and you can do it. And you know what? You always leave the stage smelling like a rose. That's what she used to say. Leave the stage smelling like a rose, and be like, well, what if it doesn't connect? So what? It doesn't connect. So what? You always say, be strong with what you have, and she used to say, just screw it and have fun with it if they can't take it. Don't worry about it, And I asked her, I said, don't you get nervous anymore? And she goes, no. And I went, she walked away from me. And I'm like, all right. So, so we had a very good rapport. I always consider myself not like in the inner circle, because there's an inner circle with every place that you go, but she respected me and I respected her. And we had just a really good back and forth kind of relationship, She knew what I was going to do, and she knew what I wasn't going to do. I wasn't going to be up there every weekend. I had a family that I had to take care of. and that was fine. But I remember when I was moving to North Carolina, and I said to her, like, through setting up chairs and stuff, I said, so do you think it's going to be okay for me? And she started like rambling this stuff off. I don't know, I said to her, is that what you're reading, or is that just common sense? And she looked at me and she went, fair enough. And I said, well, I don't know. Like, what are you doing here? So that's all she did. And she goes, fair enough. And I went, okay. And just when you think, like, does she really even care that, whatever. I go up to Virginia Beach and she's doing a workshop with Brian and Simon. And I get up there and she was like, Kim! And I'm like, oh my God, I missed you. And I'm like, oh my God, she does. Like, she does. So, she always surprised you. When you don't think she was looking, she was looking. People will say to me, yeah, but I don't know if she really can't. And I'm like, no, she was always looking. She was always looking. She was always observing, and she was, when you asked for the encouragement, she may have not handed it down constantly, but when you asked for it, she gave it to you. So, I said to her one time, so Janet, like, am I connecting psychically or am I connecting to spirit? And she went, you're always connected to spirit. Don't worry about it. That was it. And that was it. So she wasn't like this woman that walked in with a halo on her head at all. She was, like I said, she was very Jersey, very down to earth, very honest. But she was honesty with kindness is what I want to say.
I love that depiction. That really rounds out my understanding, my image of her. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it sounds like she really believed in being of service. And
she was, but not just mediumship. It was everything in her community. She was in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. So, she would have these giving trees. She would have things for the community. She would have food banks. She would have things for the veterans in the area. So it just wasn't just of service to, the person that was grieving. It was for the whole community.
Yeah.
She did things for the whole community. So, and she has great people up there, because I know the people and they're great people, and people kind of lead the way. There's Patty and there's Karen. I mean, they've, I think Patty's her best friend and Karen's been a secretary there for years. So, and then the other mediums that I grew up with, and they're there and they're kind of taking over and whatnot. And, they're gonna, they're leading her dream right down the road, with the schoolhouse and everything. So
that's wonderful. I love to hear that, and I really love to hear your story, Kim. You brought a fresh perspective forward. I love how you shared all aspects of your personal journey. I feel that's very important for those that are working with mediumship. The personal development and of course being of service, and I feel that you really helped bring a better understanding to what being of service means and how to develop a mediumship.
Yeah, there's just one thing I just wanted to add there too. And I don't like shamelessly plugging the mediumship reading room, but Jen Shepherd is also my partner in the mediumship reading room, which is for unfoldment of mediumship. And what she really, really promotes is the grief aspect of it. So, I'm a true believer as well, is that we really, really need to get ourselves acquainted with the grief process, whether you take courses in it, whether you read books, whether you, follow certain things on, Facebook, the grieving groups and whatnot, just to have a really good grasp on what the grieving process is, because it's different for everybody and every situation is different, whether you use a child, a sibling, a sudden death, a parent, an elderly parent that passes of Alzheimer's. There's all these different components to the grief, and different compartments of it as well. So, they all need to kind of be addressed, or get yourself acquainted with that as well. There's too many people that want to go into mediumship and just hang their shingle and not understand that there is years and years and years of studying. It's not just about connecting to the spirit world. it's about being of service, what we talked about, and understanding the grief process. But anyhow, Jen Shepherd has gotten herself she got herself a certification, and I forget, I don't think it's grief counseling, but it's something along that lines. Right now I can't take the course because it's just a little too much money for me right now. But yeah, so I really, really encourage people really to get themselves educated in the bereavement and the grief process.
Well, that's excellent. That's very important, because to be mindful that we are dealing as mediums with people that are in various states of the grief process.
Exactly, you know, and people sometimes, I'm not saying everybody, and I probably get walked into mediumship the same way. I want to see what I get. I just want to see what I get. I just want, yeah, I want to be of service. Yeah, I want to help. Yeah, you know. Meantime, what did I get? What did I get? You know, and then I don't think we really understand the full impact of it until we experience different communicators. And, you know, not everything is going to be grandma and grandpa or mom and dad. Sometimes they are going to be dad that shot himself in the barn with a shotgun. We are going to get the rape victim or the missing person victim, or the son that hung himself with a shower curtain, or the soldier in Afghanistan that died on the mountain, you know. So that's what we're talking about. There's a lot of responsibility with this, and I don't think people really understand it. Part of that responsibility, again, is to understand the grief process, is for self-development as well. There might be other things underneath there as well.
I thank you for touching upon that, Kim. That's very true, and thank you for bringing that forward. That's really a very wonderful thing to be able to add, for talking about mediumship. So, Kim, if someone wanted to find you, where could someone find you?
They can find me at kimgriffinmedium.com. They can also find me on Facebook, Kim Griffin Evidential Medium. Also the Mediumship Reading Room. So we have about 3,500 people in there now. And it is a Facebook page for development, and also yes, for development. We have a bunch of circles that we run each week. I believe like Mondays, Tuesdays now, 2 on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday. So we have a bunch of events that happen. Jen Shepherd has a lot, as far as, you know, bereavement and grief groups as well. She also has something for support of mediums. Some mediums that just want to, I don't want to say vent so much, but, you know, may have an issue that they had with a client or a recipient of the reading, how to address that, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so we offer a lot with that. Also, I have another Facebook page. You asked, I'm giving it to you. It's called Mediumship Demonstrations with Kim Griffin. So what that is, they're free demonstrations. I do them once a week, and it's via live Facebook. They're usually at night. I usually just give a day notice, send out a little invite, sometimes not, sometimes they're pop-ups, but it's just, you know, just to kind of give back. And I'm on there for an hour, you know, and yeah, so that's what I do.
No, that's good stuff, Kim. Thanks very much. And I'm gonna have to check out one of your gallery demonstrations. So thank you very much for sharing that. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, Kim. You have a wealth of life experience, a wealth of experience around mediumship, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you better and talking to you about this. So thank you very much for your time. It's been.
Thank you, Lorraine. I appreciate it.
Okay, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you very much, Kim. Bye for now. God bless, Kim.
Bye-bye.